Hello, everyone. My name is David Castillo, Hispanic Federation's Digital Director, here today to talk to you about how to use digital tools to engage and do outreach for your redistricting campaign. I'm really excited to be here with you today and to talk to you about how you can use digital tools most effectively. I want to go over quickly what we're going to be talking about today, just so you have an idea of what to expect for the next 20-25 minutes. Um, One, we're going to talk about why you should engage digitally at all. Then we're going to move into digital advocacy and best practices. We're going to go over who the stakeholders are in redistricting and how to engage with them in a digital space. Next, we'll be talking about uh, how to talk to our community about redistricting, again, using digital tools. And then at the very end, we'll go over some of the tools that are available for you to use in your outreach. So let's just get started. Why engage digitally? Well, first of all, we live in the digital age. Uh, you know, I, a few years ago, maybe five or so, I used to give these kind of presentations and talk about how things are moving ever increasingly towards digital communications. But I think that we are there now. And while print may not be completely dead, it's also not necessarily king of content any longer. So if there's no digital component to any outreach strategy that you are doing, you probably may not be able to, or probably shouldn't plan on a very successful campaign. And why? The internet, and more specifically, social media. These are our modern day public squares. It's where ideas are debated, problems are solved, and where people go to take action. And most importantly, for our purposes here. So not engaging digitally will limit not only the number of people you can reach, but also entire audiences who might live only or solely online. And one thing to consider is that many young people may have never even subscribed to a hard copy edition of anything at all. So when you don't engage digitally and meet people where they are, you're missing out on entire groups of people. It's also finally easier and often cheaper to do digital engagement. With a modest investment in some advocacy software, you have the potential to reach thousands of people. Essentially, the ease and efficiency with which you can engage with advocates on a digital level, it's kind of like changed the game forever, and how we reach people. It truly is essential as you think about how to do outreach on your redistricting campaign. So now we're going to look at three examples of digital advocacy campaigns. We're going to look at three of them. The first is a legislative advocacy campaign called the HEROES Act that Hispanic Federation got behind last year at the beginning of the pandemic to support people who were in need of relief because of COVID protocols and whatnot. To help get this passed, we used a tool called Phone to Action to create a landing page whereby folks could take actions. We asked them to take three actions. We wanted them to tweet, email, and call. We also built a digital toolkit using Google Docs that included draft social media language, um, an email template, and op-ed as well. We also purchased social media ads using Facebook's Business Manager and the Creator Studio, which are also free to you, and we'll go over those in a little bit near the end of the presentation. And finally, our federal policy staffer sent out the toolkit as well as a personal note to all of her networks. The results were that 355 people sent 936 emails, posted 72 tweets at legislators, and made 12 calls. I do want to make a note about the number of calls. While it might seem low, you do get to determine what you consider success for your campaign. And while calls are certainly compelling, they are the hardest lift to do. So the way we looked at it was that we had almost 1,000 emails sent and almost 100 tweets sent to legislators about our campaign and urging them specifically to take action. So that was successful for us, especially given that this was kind of thrown together, within a week or so. So don't be discouraged by necessarily low numbers like that. The next example of a digital advocacy campaign, a really great one, is the We Are Home Coalition, which is a national coalition led by United We Dream to advocate for passage of comprehensive immigration reform, and especially for DACA. Uh, these folks, it's a very big coalition. They send out weekly messaging documents and toolkits using Google Docs. And you'll probably hear me talk about that, or you are going to hear me talk about that, the Google Docs, a lot because it's a great resource. And again, all free. These toolkits, like I said, they are updated pretty much weekly. Sometimes they send out more than one a week, depending on what's happening with legislation or here in Washington. They always include sample social media messaging, downloadable graphics, and they always include calls to action. They also hold weekly calls over Zoom, which is a digital tool that you should consider using if you're going to be bringing a lot of folks together. It's a great digital organizing tool. I encourage you to check out their website, wearehome.us. You can even sign up to receive their weekly messaging and invitations to join the coalition. And finally, the last campaign we're going to look at is Take Action for Puerto Rico, which is a campaign launched in the wake of Hurricane Maria to advocate for more equitable and fair treatment for Puerto Rico in federal policy. This is we actually just relaunched the campaign just last Monday. Um, while it did start as a campaign to support uh, um, adequate funding for Puerto Rico to rebuild in the wake of Hurricane Maria's devastation. It has sort of transitioned into a campaign to support Puerto Rico generally, and especially in federal policy with equitably and fairly. The website serves as the hub for the campaign, including a yearly updated advocacy toolkit. And this is the page I'm showing you here. Um, this is a very comprehensive toolkit and a little bit different than what I've been talking about before. But it is useful. What we hired a designer to do this, and our policy staff worked on weeks for this. It's about a 50-page toolkit. May not be necessarily what you need for your campaign or even what you want to do, but it's another example of a toolkit that can be put together. And this one has a bit more design, has a lot more information than you may need for a social media campaign. But on the website, you can also take action and contact your elected officials. You can access our own a separate social media toolkit. You can sign up for the campaign both as an individual or for your organization, and you can also see news and media related to our campaign. I would encourage you to go to takeaction4pr.org. That's take action, the number 4pr.org, to get a sense of this campaign. I think it's a really great one. Like I said, we just relaunched last Monday, the September 20th, and it's a great resource and certainly one that I think you could even look to for inspiration for developing your own website or your own campaign. All right, so next we're going to look at some best practices. I have 4 of them here for you. Again, this is not an exhaustive list by any means, but I think these are really great places for you to start. The first thing you're going to want to do is develop your digital engagement strategy. A strategy should be where you start the beginning of any kind of advocacy or outreach campaign. Doing so will help you outline your goals and the tactics you need to employ to reach those goals. It'll also force you to ask you what you need for your outreach. I also want to stress that this doesn't need to be very complicated. It could even be a 2-page strategy document. Basically, what the questions you want to ask yourself to guide this development of your strategy are 3 of them. What is the desired outcome of your objective? What steps do you need to take to accomplish that outcome? And then finally, how do you take those steps, which essentially would be your tactics. Again, a good strategy will help inform the rest of your campaign and guide you along the way. Let's practice number 2. You're gonna want to invest in digital tools. This is especially important, and might seem like it should go without saying, but when doing digital work, you need an array of tools available to you to be the best and most effective advocate you can be. To start, you're going to want an email blast system. Some I have this listed down here. The advocacy software. Some email blast systems do combine both advocacy and email solutions in them, but you may not have those resources for that. you can certainly invest in, pretty modestly in something like even like Mailchimp or Constant Contact. Depending on the size of your list, that may be all you need to do, and you're able to put together nice emails for those. I'll go over in a little bit further in the presentation on other email services that are a little bit more premium. That if you had the available resources to spend on them, it might be worth your while. You're also going to want a website. Again, something that might seem to go without saying, but it's important. Like the Take Action for Puerto Rico campaign, that website is the hub for the entire campaign. Everything you need, you can get there. Everything we want people to have, we put it there. So invest in the website. There are very reasonable website creators available. Squarespace, Wix, I think are great services. The Take Action for Puerto Rico site is actually a Squarespace built site. And if you even have the resources to hire a designer to create it, um, definitely do so. And they are so user friendly that a designer can create it for you and show you how to make updates, and then you don't need to hire anyone else to do it. You can do it on your own, but the design is there. The advocacy software, like I said, I mentioned that we use Phone to Action, but it also serves as the primary email system we use. In fact, Phone to Action is an email blast system. Also allows you to create advocacy landing pages, which is that page I just showed you where you can take action. I think that was for the Heroes Act. Um, and it also provides a system for texting your advocates. It's all housed within the same software suite. Uh, like I said, it can be pricey depending on what you need. If you're able to, I highly recommend investing in it. A social media dashboard. These are things like Hootsuite or Sprout Social or HubSpot. I think those are like some of the three biggest ones. Um, you don't need to pay for them. You can use free versions. They are a little bit limiting in what you're able to do in terms of reporting and scheduling, things like that. But pretty modest investment. You can on a monthly basis. Um, if you're able to, you'll 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 have available to you metrics reporting. You can manage your ads. You can schedule things, well in advance. You can monitor hashtags, accounts, and you can develop really nice looking reports for funders, for example, or for staff. Um, Highly recommend a social media dashboard, especially if you're going to be managing different social media accounts. An analytics tool. This one, there are most social media platforms and all website services that we like Squarespace and Wix offer you analytics for free to use. My recommendation is you can use a Google spreadsheet, Google Doc spreadsheet, and pull the analytics that you think from each platform that you want to monitor. Pull the metrics that you think will uh, help you define success. Um, there are lots of different metrics for all the different platforms available. Some some you don't need. In fact, I think actually you probably should just look at two or three. Could be on Facebook, for example, your engagement, your reach, and impressions. Same with Twitter. Um, Build that on your own, but you can invest in analytics tools as well. Um, they can be pricey. My recommendation is to develop one on your own. And then finally, some graphic design tools or software. If you don't have the luxury of having a graphic designer on staff or even able to hire one, things like Canva or Spark Adobe are excellent tools for creating really nice looking graphics, especially social media shareable graphics. All right, best practice number three: identify your audiences and your targets. So first, identify your audiences. Consider the actions that you want folks to take, and then consider what action messages resonate most with those different audiences. For example, in your redistricting campaign, if you want to reach parents, consider a message that appeals to their sense of family or protecting their kids' future. By the same token, if you're trying to reach Latino senior citizens, consider messages that appeal to a sense of security. Essentially, what I'm trying to get across here is that you want these folks to all take an action. Maybe it's to send a message to their elected official about redistricting. Um, you want them to take the same action, but you're going to need to talk to them differently to make sure that you're talking to them in a way that gets to them, that's compelling for them. Those messages are not necessarily going to be the same depending on your audience. So you might just be equipped and or best equipped to reach just one audience. Um, you're going to want to tailor your messages to content that resonates with those folks. You're also going to want to identify your targets. Are you trying to reach legislators, or local officials, social media influencers? Who are the folks you're wanting to people to take action and to target? And that identifying your targets will also help guide the digital tactics that you take. And finally, best practice number four: make it easy to share your content. And my best recommendation is to develop digital toolkits and as many as you can. If you have a number of audiences you're trying to reach, come up with a digital toolkit for each audience. Um, Also, keep the toolkits themselves updated on a regular basis. Depending on what's happening in the news, or if there's special events, you might want to provide new messaging for folks to share. Um, and finally, you want to provide unbranded social media graphics. This is especially important if you are working with other organizations or other nonprofits, whatever it might be. Having The idea is to get your content out there, and you may not want to post something that has the logo of your organization, or you may want to post something to your platform with someone else's logo. But when you provide them unbranded graphics, it makes it easier to share. It's more of an incentive as well. Also, in these toolkits, don't limit yourself to social media. Provide things like email templates. I know for myself, when I get these are especially helpful. Maybe not copying the whole thing, but I can use it as a guide. Sample op-eds are excellent things to provide in these toolkits as well. Letters to the editor, talking points, messaging guidance. Basically, anything that you think would be helpful for the folks you're reaching to know about your campaign. You should feel free to put in there. And again, all these digital toolkits can be done with Google Docs for free, but there are also some paid tools you can use, which I will go over near the end. All right, engaging with stakeholders. Just as you would in person, you want to conduct yourself respectfully. This is especially true if stakeholders involved may not necessarily be friendly to your cause, and that is something that you might encounter. You will need to talk to elected officials or legislators who may be on the other side or maybe in a different party. Uh, the idea though is to be as respectful as you would with them in person, um, or online as you would in person. Tips to keep in mind when engaging with stakeholders, and in this case, in redistricting, they will be elected officials and their staff. Chiefly, do not insult them, and do not use all caps. As we all know, in online space and in texting, using all caps is yelling. Um, you wouldn't go to a meeting with an elected official and berate them or their staff. Don't feel like you can do it just because you have a screen between you and them. Make sure you refer to them by the right name or how they want to be referred to, as well as using the right handle. This is also a practical matter, just because if you tag the wrong handle, they're not going to see the message. But it's really important to make sure you're referring to them how they want to be referred to. They've taken the time to be with you or to meet with you. Um, it's just a matter of respect and courtesy to make sure you are referring to them correctly. It also could be a determinant to whether they will meet with you again. Um, don't engage in trolling of their accounts. Another really key issue, especially if you've met with a legislator, or they're not going the way they're not acting the way you wanted them to act on a specific issue. It might be tempting to troll them but don't. Again, especially with elected officials, you're trying to build relationships, and while someone may not have done what you wanted them to do, you may need them, and you may find that they're willing to. They might need you in the future. Things like trolling their accounts are things they will remember. Um, be flexible with your scheduling or your schedule if you're inviting them, an elected official, to an online event. Now, this doesn't mean that you need to give them an hour if they still haven't shown up for your event, but you might want to consider, for example, um, a plan B for how you start your program if the official is supposed to be at the top of your program, things like that. These are busy folks, and while you are an important person yourself, uh, they it's not uncommon for elected officials especially to to be a little blasé about their timing or the scheduling, especially with if they feel it's not something as important as another meeting they might have. So just give yourself some flexibility uh, on online events or meetings or things like that. Um, if their office has decided to engage in the digital event with you, be sure to have all the right contact information for the staff member charged with your event or with your issue or your meeting. Staff is essential in reaching elected officials, so be nice to them. This is a point I do want to drive home because if you have a good relationship with a staff member, chances are uh, you'll have a better opportunity to meet with the staff with the elected official or them accepting your invitation to join your event. So building relationships with staff is critical. And finally, always thank them and tag their handle, again, the right handle. These kind of small gestures go a very long way, especially for future events or meetings. They will remember if you thank them, and they'll also remember if you did not thank them. Again, this is not a comprehensive list, but I think it's a good start for you in how to get yourself in the mindset for engaging with stakeholders in a digital space. So where can we find legislators? Well, certainly, you can find them at your state capital or uh, city hall, but that's not necessarily a digital space to find them. So you can find them on social media. Just about every legislator just about every level is on Twitter. It is a critical medium for legislators, especially reaching their constituents. So Twitter is a great tool for that. And one thing I would recommend on Twitter is making use of their lists function. So if you've developed your target list, you can create a list of all those handles in Twitter and use that to reach them all at once or to provide to your supporters. You can send them a link to your list, like here are all the folks you need to reach. Put them in one place where people can find them, and Twitter makes that actually very easy for you to do. Facebook, uh, I think that there are fewer legislators there, certainly not to the same extent as on Twitter. But again, while I don't have a list function the way that Twitter does, it's still a place where you can go to develop those lists. Email, obviously. There are services that you can subscribe to get emails, not only the elected officials but of their staff. Those can be pricey, and you may not have the resources for that. One idea, if you have interns, a great ongoing intern project to do is to call up the offices one by one and get the email and contact information of all the relevant staffers that you need. That is maybe a little bit old school, but if you don't have the resources to invest in the software that gives you the contact info for, say, in Washington D.C. for all Capitol Hill, that kind of doing that old-fashioned calling up it will work. Um, Instagram, kind of the same way as Facebook. Um, there are fewer legislators there or elected officials on Instagram and Facebook than on Twitter, but still helpful to have their handles just in case they are. And like I said earlier, when you're developing your target list, these three social media platforms are you're definitely going to want to have those available to you. And also, these handles are things you can provide to folks in any digital toolkits that you put together. Again, you're wanting to make it as easy as possible for folks to reach the targets that you want them to reach. So engaging with our community. Uh, a lot of the tips for engaging with the stakeholders in the digital space are the same for engaging with our community, but there are some differences. So first, be mindful of the language you're using. If you're trying to reach Latinos in your community, you want to make your content bilingual, or a lot of it bilingual. Or depending on the Latino audience you're trying to reach, you might use a blend of Spanish and English content within like the same message. You will know, you know your community, you know how they like to be talked to, but especially with our community, be mindful of how you of the bilingual aspect of your content. I will say also that in media events that I've done over the course of my career, when we've invited Spanish language media, and the event goes, I'm thinking of press conferences specifically, speakers get up and no one says anything in Spanish. Um, you know, they might not attend your next event, and that's because they've taken the time to come to your event, but you haven't been mindful, or you haven't considered the fact that they do all their Spanish language media outlet. So you've missed an opportunity, and they may not. While they might have gone to your press conference, they may not run a story about it because there was no one who said anything in Spanish. Same kind of applies to any kind of digital outreach. If there's no content available to someone who feels most comfortable speaking in Spanish, then you've lost a potential advocate there. Be respectful and consider about messages on family and relationships. These are themes that are especially compelling in our community, certainly. But so you're going to want to consider factors that might affect how the message might be perceived in their community. If you're making an irreverent joke about uh, grandma, or your relationship, or your mom or dad, it might it might not go down the way that you expect it to. Again, you know your community, you know what will work for them. Just be just be respectful, especially on when you're talking about family. And finally, consider the technology your community is using to access your content. In the Latino community, for many of us, mobile devices are the only access we have to the internet. Uh, so, a website that doesn't include mobile responsiveness, and they are out there, that may not work for them, and they may not be as interested in going to your site because they can't get to the content that you want them to share. Um, so it's something to be mindful of. All right, ways to engage, and I've said this again. I'll say it again here. No, this isn't exhaustive, but just some ideas to get your creative juices flowing. So, Instagram, consider a takeover. Uh, these are popular. I think they can be. You want to make sure that whoever's taking over, you give them a list of what is allowed, what is not allowed, how you talk on your what you talk about on your account. But it can be very successful if done well. But just beware of some of the risks of giving over the keys to your Instagram to someone. But if it's done right, it can be very successful. Consider doing live Q&A sessions, 5-10 minutes live sessions with maybe with an elected official, or with someone on a redistricting board. Live Q&As are great content, again, that's very shareable. And use your story function. This is also for applies to Facebook as well. um, Use your story function to showcase events. You can put a storyboard together about redistricting. That all leads to an action, maybe like three critical ideas, and so there would be three storyboards, and then at the end you ask them to take an action, and you point them toward your action page. TikTok. I'll be honest here, I am not as well versed in TikTok as some of the other platforms, but I do know that dance challenges are a big thing on TikTok. Maybe there's a dance challenge that will work for you, or maybe there's an influencer there that might be willing to work with you and collaborate. Also, emailing campaigns. You might do a 4-week email campaign where you have your advocates uh, send emails to the legislators or elected officials on a different topic each week. Email campaigns are great. Texting. I didn't talk about this too much, but earlier in the presentation, that is. But a texting campaign is critical if it's a tool that you have available to you. We use our SMS platform for a variety of issues, but certainly to ask folks to take action. So this could be is definitely a way to engage that you should consider. Twitter storms and Twitter chats, great ways to share content and put them out there. A Twitter storm, just a quick if you're not sure the difference, a Twitter storm is essentially a group of people deciding to share the same content and messages from their respective platforms all at the same time, or during a period of time, maybe for an hour or an afternoon. Twitter chats. I always just think I think the easiest way to think about Twitter chats is like an online panel discussion. You'll have a moderator and maybe one or two guests, and you're all just tweeting at each other answering questions and whatnot. And the idea is to get folks to participate, um, but it's very much a conversation between a moderator and panelists. A hashtag campaign, even if you don't develop a campaign around a hashtag, you should still absolutely have a hashtag associated with whatever your campaign is, your redistricting, advocacy, and your outreach. And finally, live streaming events. I'm sure you've all been invited to a number of these over the course of the pandemic. I know I certainly have, and I've run them as well. But they are really great. You might, list out different topics around redistricting and develop some programming whereby you invite someone to come and talk about the specific issue, or maybe you have someone on staff who is an expert on a specific issue. Set up a 20-minute Q&A. You can do some promotion of it. A week is probably enough time beforehand to promote this event. And it's a great way to, like I said, to engage, and a great thing to share out once it's over. That's really important. And it's interactive, it's video. So live streaming, certainly an engagement method that you want to consider. Digital tools available for all. Uh, the first icon we have here is a camera. We all have cameras on our iPhones, on our computers. There are uh, great tools available for you to create videos. Um, Things like for live streaming events, things like StreamYard or even just Facebook Live itself are great for creating content that you can then use free video editors. YouTube has a free video editor for you to use that you can then cut and create nice, simple, easy videos. There are also an increasingly number of tools available, apps available to help you create videos. I know that Adobe Spark, for example, is one that helps you easily create videos using your camera phone alone. Google, Google Docs, Google Spreadsheets, Google Listservs. All of Google's products are free, and they're excellent resources to take advantage of, especially if you have limited resources available. I talked a lot about them in this presentation, and I can't stress enough how important they are, especially like I said, if you're short on resources. Um, Social media dashboards. I talked a little bit about those earlier. If you don't have the resources to invest, a monthly subscription, at the very least for Facebook and Instagram, open up a business account and start making use of what is called Creator Studio, Facebook Creator Studio, that allows you to manage your content in both Facebook and Instagram, and will allow you to do things in Instagram, like manipulate the text and how it looks, give proper spacing. And in Facebook, you can upload several videos at a time. You can manage your video library from there. They're really great tools, and they are also free. You can also get your analytics from Creator Studio as well. Canva is a very affordable graphic design tool. And if you are a nonprofit, you may be eligible for a free account, free professional account is what they call it. You just have to show some proof that you are a nonprofit, and once they've accepted, you have access to millions of stock photos and images, thousands of templates available to you to help you make beautiful graphics and presentations and PowerPoints. And again, this is especially helpful if you don't have the resources or the luxury of having a graphic designer on staff. Websites. I mentioned Squarespace. I mentioned Wix. If you have your own organizational website, certainly make use of that as well. Website, like I said, is especially important. It should be kind of the hub for any kind of digital campaign you're running. And then finally, our phone, which is a great a digital tool. And some that are not listed on here that I want to talk about are like the premium email advocacy software services. So I'm just going to go over briefly 4 of them. I'm not going to go into great detail, but because they all kind of do the same thing. But Phone to Action, Every Action, Salsa Engage, and Nation Builder, I think are in my opinion, some of the best 4 of those that are out there. Well, essentially, what you want any of these tools to be able to do is to provide you an email blast system, the ability to create easily landing pages that people can use to take action or to connect to their elected officials. They can also be used to create sign up pages that you can kind of tailor to collect the information that you want from folks. And then also texting. If a combination of those 3 is what you want any of the advocacy software services. And that is all I have for you today. Your homework now is to complete the stakeholder mapping sheet, then your digital outreach strategy worksheet, and then submit them to our academy at HispanicFederation.org. Again, my name is David Castillo. It was great to be here with you today. I wish you luck in your redistricting campaign and engaging digitally. Good luck, all.